Extension, Education, and Economic Development Committee underway, and
We'll call the meeting of the Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee to order.
first off is Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is public comment, and we will start with Yao Yang. You'll each have 3 minutes, and you can come up to the microphone here, and I will even turn it on.
My name is Yao Yang, and I serve as the pastor of the Cross Church. We're a non-denominational, multi-ethnic congregation located in Schofield. We are committed to serving marginalized and impoverished populations within Marathon County. Our ministry focuses on meeting practical needs, supporting vulnerable individuals, and fostering long-term community well-being. Over the years, we've been actively involved in assisting the down and out, helping unemployed individuals to be able to find gainful employment through the Joseph Project. And I myself have been providing Bible study at the Marathon County Jail for the last 10 years. We've also recently expanded our efforts to support youth and their mental health and adults with special needs within the county. It has come to my attention that part of today's meeting includes discussions regarding the future of the UWSP Wausau campus property, which includes several buildings. One of the challenges our church currently faces is a lack of adequate space to support the scope of our program and community services. For this reason, we are interested in possibility acquiring one of the buildings to get some gym space so we can further our mission and continue to make a meaningful and positive impact in the lives of the children, the youth, adults, and individuals with special needs within Marathon County. I understand there are 2 primary options for determining how to move forward with a property. The first one is an RFP, or number 2 is allowing the Wisconsin Economic Development Council to take the lead in the planning. Today, I respectfully advocate for pursuing the RFP process. An RFP would provide local leaders, many of whom operate nonprofit organizations with limited budgets, but also deep investment in the community, the opportunity to propose uses that directly addresses the needs of Marathon County. Local leaders like myself have firsthand experiences with the challenges faced by our residents. And through our daily work, we understand what solutions we can have to strengthen and uplift our county. Having the chance to acquire one of these buildings would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a grassroots, community-focused nonprofit organization like ours to expand our capacity and serve more people. I strongly believe that an open RFP process would ensure that these properties would remain in the hands of local leaders who are truly committed to improving the lives of Marathon County residents and contributing to a healthy and thriving future for our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, and next we have Jonathan Smith.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Smith, 1114 Prospect Avenue, Wausau 54403. The need for arts and theater in a time when it feels like many things in society are falling apart may feel like a non-issue. I'm here to say that that is not the case. In a society where social groups and third spaces are continually threatened, where more and more time is spent on screens, when neighbors feel disconnected and seen as a threat, we need arts and theater more than ever. It is in spaces like the Veninga where children share stories that help them understand that they're not alone, where they feel valued and encouraged, where children and adults witness empathy and compassion and step into another person's shoes. We look outside of ourselves, and in storytelling, we learn from one another. Those spaces where folks are reminded to create and not just consume. Children and adults from over an hour away participate in our local theater groups, build community, and more. Many folks call Wausau home because of the strength of the art and the theater scene. And the Veninga Theater has been built in a way that makes it a far more sustainable building to preserve for community events. It has a full fly system on stage, a professional asset that only the Grand has in this area, as well as a reasonably sized theater that regularly fills with events of all kinds. Please give the time for local leaders and nonprofits to work together through the RFP process to come up with a plan to preserve as much of the public assets as is feasible. A Center for Arts and Culture, like proposed by the Community Foundation, will help ensure that Wausau is a place where people learn and grow in community and compassion. And to quote a song from Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods from Children's Theater, "Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn." Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Rick Framboy.
Give me a minute to warm up vocally here. I wasn't expecting to have to follow Jonathan. Hello again, everybody. I know I recognize a lot of faces in here. Rick Laframboy with the Central Wisconsin Children's Theaters. I brought some handouts. Some of you heard my comments the last time the topic came up, but for those who haven't, I will reiterate a couple of things. I did circulate the letter to all the county board members about the support for the Veninga. Of course, we appreciate, speaking for the Children's Theater, we do appreciate the Community Foundation stepping in to help begin to lead through this process. So we're in support of that plan that Tim will talk about here in just a minute. For the Children's Theater, the Veninga has served as home for longer than I've been around the theater. It is part of the Children's Theater's brand. We have all 4 season shows there. And like Jonathan said, it is state of the art in terms of what's available. We've been to schools. Chris Berg's I have to mention Chris, professional services he offers. Open mic. So I guess I want to say, we had about 12 arts groups sign the letter that I sent to y'all, and in support of that going forward as a community asset, which was what it was when Mr. Obie brought that federal money into the community, and the foundations and the county stepped up to get the matching dollars, and then the foundations poured some money in to create the asset that was has been much needed, and has been well utilized since. Just our 4 shows alone, I know we bring in over $20,000 in revenue to the theater, so we help pay some of the overhead, some of Chris's salary, and would continue to call it home. We plan in advance, so I did get a brief moment here. I think Marissa, right? Miranda, I'm sorry, I knew it was him. Just introduced myself to Miranda, and she has mentioned that the university is poised to allow groups like ours to, while this process, the RFP process, which I'm in support of, is played out, that we could, for the fall, rent the space. That is crucial, and I think that ask is going to be put to y'all today. We pay thousands in rights for the shows that we stage, and we pay over $5,000 per show for the theater. And we announce, we promote, we try to fill the seats. It goes way beyond just the parents and the families who come to our shows. We have a brand there, an established experience for our audiences and our supporters. So we want to maintain that, and having access to the fall is key, fall of 26, and of course beyond. We would love to be there for years and years going forward. So I'm just going to hand out these cards that have all 4 shows for the current season on them, along with QR codes for more information on the back. Please take one if you're interested. Love to see you at a show.
Thank you. And next we have Tim Parker, please.
Good afternoon. I think you all have a general idea of who I am, but I'm Tim Parker. I'm the CEO of the Community Foundation of North Central Wisconsin. I've been in this role for 5 years, but I wasn't in philanthropy before this. My background is in business, the arts, and culture. I moved here from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm an active musician. I've created venture capital firms across the state of Michigan. I've started my own company. I've worked for a private company for a long time. And I've run cultural arts programs for the communities that I lived in West Michigan. Those all prepared me to move into philanthropy for this, my landing strip of my career. And the opportunity that has come up with the advent of NTC partnering with UWSP has really grown since the last time I spoke to this group. So I'm a proponent of an RFP, and we would like to be one of those to submit one. It may be for the whole campus, because what we're finding after I talked before is that my email is filling up to a point. I think a couple people in here I haven't even been able to respond to since that meeting. I bought a list. I bought a list of all the 501c3s in Marathon County. There are 1,200 of them. So I started narrowing that down a little bit to the ones that might have access to the campus here. And we're working to coordinate all of those organizations to bring them together to see if they want to be part of an initiative to create the Marathon Center for Arts and Culture. That's the name I gave you last time, but I think we might revise that a little bit and call it the Marathon Center for Arts, Business, and Culture, because workforce development is interested in it. I think there's opportunity for entrepreneurship there. I think there's opportunity for, developing tourism for, on the cultural side, partnering with Janice at ECDC. Pulling together the arts organizations, whether they're performing or visual arts or others, and really making this the center for Marathon County for all of those things. So if you look at the ABCs of Marathon County, they may become the arts, business, and culture. I've had schools call. I've had daycare centers call. It's feeling a little bit endless right now. It feels like we're running through the woods and it's raining and the windshield wipers kind of aren't going fast enough, but I'm comfortable in the gray zone. My job is to convene, pull people together when there's an opportunity to make our community better, and then we'll hand it off once it's clear to leaders like maybe Peter Dotson, who's sitting in the back, might be one of those that can really execute it and make it happen for us. So either way, he's going to be part of it. He's taught in that school. He's a pillar of this community. He's one of those quiet ones that you know his wife better than him, but he affects just as much change as she has. So I'm a proponent of the RFP.
10 seconds.
And in the last 10 seconds, I would say if you're going to submit an RFP, feel free to do that, but talk to me. Maybe we could do it in partnership. Thanks.
Thank you. And next is Tim White, please.
Hello, committee members. Thank you for listening to our public comments. Appreciate your ears. I am Tim White. I'm the Executive Director of Visit Wausau, the destination marketing organization in the county. Formerly, also, you may have known it as the CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau. We do all that as well. But our job is to really showcase what it's like to visit to Marathon County and experience all the wonderful things that Marathon County has. And when you create a place that people want to visit, you create a place where people think about living. And when you create a place where people think about living, you create a place where people think, oh, I could work here, and then I could invest here. It always starts with a visit. And so an opportunity like this, RFP to have an arts and cultural center, to really showcase that the county cares about its people and is using a best usage of the facilities that are available, is a great opportunity not only for the people in the county, but also for people that are considering visiting and moving to the county as well. So I would encourage the best use of this facility. Tim Parker's ideas are great. Obviously, you'll open it to RFPs, but I believe the more we can help nonprofits thrive and really help enhance what the community's offering, then we'll hear more people go like this. Start spreading the news. You're leaving today. I want to be a part of it. Wausau, Marathon County. There you go. Thank you.
I topped it.
Thank you, and I pity any other committee to have this kind of talent show up for public comment. Next is Paul Radke.
Hello, my name is Paul Radke. I'm at 804 Scott Street in Wausau. I just want to reiterate what Rick and Tim said. I'm the current president of Wausau Community Theater, and Rick led up to this. We're right now currently trying to come up with our season. We like to release an entire season, which typically goes out till June, which we're going to be in an issue here because we'll only be able to schedule out until December, which will get 2 of our shows. But that's what we'll have to somehow work out. And I guess to advocate for this RFP, I haven't talked to Tim directly about his thoughts, but I'll talk to him about that. But theater is such, you see so many, when you create a show and you get 50 people and they form a little family, it really is supportive of everybody. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment for today. So next we will move on to approval of the November 6th, 2025 joint meeting minutes.
A question for Corp Counsel. Do we need to do this with each committee or can we do it jointly?
I think you can do it jointly.
We have a motion, okay, by Supervisor Lemmer, a second by Supervisor Rosenberg. Is there any discussion? No? All in favor of approval? Aye. Any noes? No? Okay, they're approved. Thank you. Next, we will move on to 5, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy. A, UWSP Wausau campus, continued discussion and possible action regarding decision-making process for the facility and next steps. Anything to say first?
I can take.
We'll turn it over to Administrator
Sure.
Leonard.
And sorry if I'm going to disappoint. I'm not going to sing or dance or do anything, but no, it's actually for your benefit. In your packet, there's quite a number of memos, and I think we can move through a couple of them relatively quickly to get to what I think is of most interest to the committee and perhaps to the individuals watching, and that's the discussion of next steps. But in terms of some of the memos, you had questions, the committee members had questions, or board members had questions at the last meeting. The first one, and I think the easiest one to dispatch, is what impact or constraints are put on any process that the board ultimately wants to move forward with based on the existing West Side Master Plan. And the short answer I put in my memo is I don't think there are any, which is what I shared at the last meeting. I put a memo in there that shows certainly this area, the UW campus, was discussed in the master plan. It's referenced in a couple of areas. But again, the master plan is not a binding document. It's a vision document. Certainly, whatever comes to pass post January of 2026, post January of 2027, we'll update that document. But short answer, don't feel the need to review the 75-ish pages of the existing Wausau property West Side Master Plan if you don't want to, or if you've already done it. The second question that was kind of alluded to, it was really what does that WEDC grant program look like? There's a memo Chris put together in the packet. Again, it's $2 million for any branch campus. Originally in the legislation, it specified a series of campuses and we were not listed. That was vetoed from that legislation. There was question, so short answer, we believe we're eligible by all indications. We're eligible for up to $2 million until the $20 million pot is expended. The other question that still does remain is really whether or not there are restrictions based on academic use. And I'd love to give you a great answer that, hey, we know there's no constraints based on continued academic use. I don't feel great saying that, but WEDC is, and Chris, feel free to jump in, or Candace if you feel differently, but I think our process that we'll get to in a couple minutes, talking through the RFP process, sets us up well to be able to make ultimate application for those funds based on whatever RFP responses we get, and ultimately that the board would select and provide staff direction to move forward with. So that memo can speak to the grant program. The real challenge is a number of things were vetoed, and WEDC, I get the sense they still think are good things to have in that consideration process, but at the end of the day, the $2 million for our campus is something we should still try to access. And then the last piece, and it was alluded to in public comment, we did have discussions with the UW about allowing those existing organizations that have historically made use of the university, and particularly the theater, to continue to book events. We haven't heard any firm answer back, but unless Miranda is feeling very committal here today, we haven't got a firm commitment back, but I'm very confident that UW will be in a position to continue to allow those through the end of their lease. They just operate on a different fiscal year than the county, so they were trying to be very good stewards and say, hey, we can only commit through the middle of the year. But I don't know do you feel like making a commitment today, Miranda? Not to put you on the spot, I should have asked before, or if you have better information.
Yeah, we are absolutely in support of continuing with anything that will get booked in our theater through all of 2026, certainly.
That's great. See, that's good commitment. And then I know one of the things we need to work through, and we're actually going to bring to HR Finance next week, the UW approached us about executing and wants the county board to approve executing a mutual lease termination document, just spelling out what we both understand that process to look like. They've circulated a draft. Chris and I have had the opportunity to look at it. I candidly haven't given it a great review, but we'll do that. I don't see any big heartburn with it, but that's quick and dirty overview of where we've been over the last, since your last meeting, to kind of bring those pieces of information to you. I think the big conversation, and as you heard today in public comment, certainly people are listening to the conversations that this body is having, these two bodies are having about the future and the idea of moving forward with a request for proposals. In your packet, you do have the request for proposal template that we put together for the Thomas Street building. And then you also have what Chris took the lead on putting together, this RFP framework that spells out a number of, kind of a timeline, but also interspersed within it are a couple of what I think are key questions, what we think are key questions. And ultimately, you also have in your packet a broad authorizing resolution that at the end of the day, if you think it's a good course of action to move forward with, it would go to the county board to be approved later this month. That would essentially authorize staff to work on getting that RFP out relatively quickly. And the RFP would be framed around what's in this framework document, and as well as the general information in the Thomas Street RFP, so that then you'd get those proposals in a timely fashion. But if it's okay with the chairs, we'll just kind of go through this RFP framework document. I won't go through it in detail, but you've all had the opportunity to kind of see the timeline that is envisioned, but there are a couple of key questions, and I guess I'll frame it around those. So you'll see that you're having your meeting today to look at this this document, this framework. One of the questions we have is, do you want to keep meeting as a joint body moving forward for, while this RFP, if we do go that route, while it's out. My sense is you just let your two chairs do that as needed, but I don't see a whole lot of things for you to jointly talk about while an RFP would be out. And our recommendation, as you saw in the framework, is to allow for a pretty long period relative to other RFPs that we've done historically. Our recommendation is 8 weeks to allow a lot of the conversations that it sounds like from some of the public commenters have already been happening, but allow enough of a time for those conversations to continue to happen amongst those groups so that they then can collaborate and hopefully bring forward an RFP that solves their needs and doesn't put staff or the county board in a position of trying to fit a puzzle piece together of who's going to work with who. So that's really the first question. If you feel differently, please certainly continue to, you can give us direction and we'll make sure we bring information to this joint body as needed. But my sense is that you don't need to continue to meet jointly, particularly if we put out an RFP that has proposals due at the end of March of next year until we get closer to that March, that time. Because honestly, I just don't see too many things that you'd need to talk about. But that's that first question. The second question that is framed up, and you'll see in January, we talk about trying to get that RFP out. Our initial thought based on the conversation you had at your last joint meeting, and I think from an operational perspective, it makes very good sense, is that proposals, we should incorporate into our request for proposals a requirement that any proposer has to focus on, they can't propose on half a building. It's got to be, hey, this is our proposal for every building. You can propose on the whole campus. That would be, I think, the county board, from your perspective, I would assume that would be great if you've got a proposal for the whole thing. I know from staff's perspective, we would love that. But that idea, again, not portions of buildings. You can do one whole building, two whole buildings, all the whole buildings, but we're not going to be in the position of, I don't think the county board is well suited to be in a position, and staff certainly are not, to be, hey, we want 4 offices. No, so that was one of the things we put in. The question for the committee in that second box is, are there things that are missing from this framework that begins on page 3 and the RFP template that each of your committees has had the opportunity to look at relative to the Thomas Street property that are missing? If there are those things, we can work to incorporate those into that RFP that would ultimately be released. But the second question is a very open-ended one. What, if anything, are we missing? And then the last question that is framed up on this framework is really, how do you want those RFPs to be evaluated and scored? What is staff's role? And what is the board's role? And again, I'll give you my recommendation here. Let's see what we get. If we get 10 proposals, that's a different scenario than if you get 1, particularly if the 1 meets all of your criteria and is acceptable. But as I shared at your last meeting, the ultimate decision is not one for staff. That is, I want to be very clear about, particularly if the board, if the ultimate decision is to sell, which I know that is, or divest, I should say, that's a county board decision by statute. The board must approve the sale of property. But regardless, let me back up. What does that scoring look like? I think staff's role is to bring information to you and package those things and highlight certain areas of those for ultimately the board to make the decision. So what I think might work well is when we get the proposals back, perfect time for a joint meeting of these 2 bodies. the Extension Education Economic Development Committee and HR Finance and Property Committee, that we would then, staff would present a summary of the proposals that we received, and you, the elected officials, would come up with a recommendation that would ultimately go to the full board for consideration. Of course, the full board could, as you all have seen at various times, they can take a different route than a committee recommendation, but at least having it work through your traditional committee process that serves you well in a wide variety of situations, I think it would serve you well here. So that recommendation from these two committees, because again, you both have, under your existing rules, significant interest and responsibility with respect to the campus. HR Finance from just a general finance perspective and county property perspective. And of course, the Extension Education Economic Development Committee from the perspective of higher education and your role there. So again, joint committee meeting to evaluate all the proposals and come up with a recommendation that would go to the full board. The board, as I would envision this going, the board would evaluate what decision to make that decision and provide direction to staff. I'm certainly not an economic development expert, but my limited experience in that area and just doing a little bit of research, I would suspect that the recommendation might be to, negotiate a sale based on the RFP terms and the response. Staff are well suited to start that process and fine tune that process and bring a final document to the full board for execution. But again, that final decision is the board's. If the property is going to be sold, that final decision would have to go through the board. If the direction from the board earlier is to select a proposal that is a long-term lease, and my sense is that's not, your RFP allows for proposals to be submitted that have that approach, but based on the conversations and the discussions that you've had to this point, I suspect that's not your most preferred option. But if at the end of the day, that is the direction of the board, to negotiate a lease consistent with the general terms of the RFP that was received, I don't believe the board needs to take final action to approve the lease. You can direct staff to work those terms out. That's how you've historically done leases in the past. But again, in terms of evaluating the RFPs, the responses that come in, and making that final decision, the question of, is that staff's job or is it yours? Respectfully, I think that's your job. We'll do our best to bring that information to you, but that's how I see that. That would be my recommendation to you. So all that aside, those are the three questions that we kind of framed up through this process. And with that, Madam Chair and Mr. Chair, staff are happy to answer any questions. Chris, Candace, did I miss anything? You guys want to highlight anything?
Administrator Leonard, you and I, we've had a number of discussions relative to this, and I'm in agreement that we, perhaps in terms of the committees meeting jointly, maybe that's a decision by decision basis, and we would look at it in the context of what is the issue, and is it appropriate for both committees to meet and to make that decision. And I think Chair Marash and I have a very good working relationship on that. In the context of what elements are missing, I think it would be helpful to the community if we could get a mission or vision statement in our request for proposal and what it is we want to do and incorporate. We're looking for partnerships. We're looking to address the campus in its entirety as a preference, that we're not going to deal with parts of buildings and other things, sort of encapsulating that. I think also in there should be you have to be a political subdivision to apply for the branch grant. And I think that what we should do in there is state that it would be Marathon County's intent as part of this process to apply for the branch grant of up to $2 million for the purposes of making improvements to the facilities should they be necessary. And that would give any interested party an understanding that we would be a partner with them going forward. But that, if you look at the capital improvement list that Chris had advanced as part of the capital improvement process and identified in the documents, there's a number of structural things that may or may not need to be done. We may or may not need to separate the heating plant. We may or may not need to demolish the dorms, but I think what we want to do is keep our options open relative to what the proposals are, but also to make the commitment that going forward, we would be a partner relative to pursuing and trying to obtain that $2 million grant from Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation.
Anyone else?
Thank you. I would like to suggest that in the Thomas Street proposal, it has evaluation criteria, sales tax generation. However, we're ignoring the fact that we should also include property tax generation. So I would like to suggest that be sales and property tax generation, as both are sources of revenue for the county. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Supervisor Lemmer.
Okay, so first of all, thank you to the public speakers. I appreciate again I'm just encouraged by the interest and excited, hopeful. So thank you for that, and to staff for putting this together. I love the timeline. It's very helpful for me to see that visual. Just for my own peace of mind, I think what happens if, how do the RFP proposers understand what's still available? I think last time, we talked about WIPS is still there, WPR. Are they going to be there? I mean, how does that all get communicated?
Great question. So I think Chris put a couple of pieces in the framework that get at that. Our thought is to, as part of the RFP process, make very clear who the current lessors of the building are, who's holding leases, who's operating within that space, so that proposers would know that and have the opportunity to have those conversations with those entities to see if they can work out and fit into that future vision of what that facility would be from their perspective, because again, they're the ones that are gonna have to do it. And then also structure opportunities through that for those meetings. You'll see Chris put a couple of lines in there about, not only a mandatory site walkthrough, which we do for, which we envision doing for when we're trying to redevelop large building sites, to make sure that people really understand what they're proposing on, but also have just opportunities when we're like, hey, we're gonna have essentially an open house. If you're interested in proposing, come, kind of as Mr. White talked about, and Mr. Parker, have those conversations. Like, hey, if you're interested, sit down and talk to, here are the other interested people, can you work together? And maybe you don't need a full building, and the other group doesn't need a full building. You guys can work together to put that proposal together for consideration by the full board. That was the thought, and to structuring those opportunities. I don't know, Chris, if you wanted to highlight anything else or add detail to my general statements.
Yes. No, I think you summarized it well, but ultimately, the idea we had going into it is that we know that it's a complicated endeavor in general, especially because in this sort of interim period, we've had people who have expressed interest, but they really only need this much or that much. And so that initial open house that he referenced is not part of the RFP process. There'll be a separate walkthrough to do similar functions as a part of that, so that if people in that RFP timeframe have additional questions, and there's even a venue within the RFP process itself to present questions, have them answered, and then they get put out to everybody who's expressed an interest. But that first one is really to provide an opportunity for the groups that Mr. Parker was talking about, known and unknown, that could show up and ask questions, see building information, see the spaces, ask questions about, the things that they might not have an expertise in, like what is it, how is this heated, how is this cooled, or any sorts of things like that that we and the UW staff have a knowledge of that we can share, so that they get a lot more context, I guess, behind what they're looking into. So the goal of that meeting on the 12th, I think, if that's when it ultimately happens of January, would be to have that venue for anyone who's interested to then address those types of concerns, and then that flows into whoever meets and greets in that time frame and says, hey, we could be a part of this proposal, or maybe we could be a part of multiple proposals if there's different ideas out there, so that then they find a home. But in my mind, I think the idea from the RFP is it's really sort of a blank slate in terms of like, how does it end up looking? So if it's WIPS, WPR, and other folks involved, then they would want to be involved in that same sort of like being linked in that initial conversation or other conversations that are happening outside of our process. So that's part of that complicating factor, in terms of how do you know who is all out there? But that's why we also wanted to make sure that people who have shown up expressing interest know who's actually there already, so that then if they're trying to complete the pieces of their puzzle, maybe there's spots here that end up working for them too.
So is there a contact person at the county that they should be working with? Or is that date, the 12th, the date? Has that been publicized? I guess I'm just kind of wondering, how does this process move forward?
So it's not officially the date yet. It's within this framework. There's the authorizing resolution, all those pieces. We don't want to get, and from my point of view, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but if we all agree that that's what we want to do, then yeah, we could mark that date on the calendar, put the word out, we can do a press release for people who may not even know these meetings are happening, so that then you've cast a wide net. And even in the document, I said we might have to break into several small groups, depending on who shows up, and then take them through the same process to get their questions answered, but also to see the same things based on their interests.
And I would just say that the idea, your specific question of, is there a contact person at the county? To Chris's point, we'll have a wide net cast, and we will say, hey, these are the dates, or this is the date for all of the groups to meet. But what we tried to do, and when we had this conversation, and I think I shared this general sentiment last time that you met, is take the county, whether it's staff or individual board members, out of the position of trying to be matchmaker, and let the groups organically have those conversations to figure out what best works for them. Because selfishly, I don't want to be in that position, because I have no doubt I will not make everyone happy. I have no doubt even the best proposal, someone is likely to be, oh, I really would have liked to have something else. And I think the board would be in a similar position. So trying to create a framework of a process whereby those conversations are driven by the entities, as opposed to the county sitting there with a whiteboard and a different colored Sharpie to shade in who wants what. But to your point, I think the framework is set up that Chris put together to allow for those conversations to happen. The dates might change a little bit, but the idea is, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, do you like that idea of how we would do that? And then staff will go make that happen.
So if we could break down the process, I think that we have a resolution before us today resolution authorizing the release of a request for proposals for the redevelopment of the campus. And that embraces or incorporates the framework. So if we wanted to advance it, I think the appropriate action would be to adopt that resolution. Subject to, I think, probably incorporating, the RFP can change right up to the actual issuance of it. And I think capturing Vice Chair Marshall's concerns and others. And I would like to, we don't have the descriptor like we do for the Thomas Street, so we'll have to put that background in there. And I put that mission vision would be important. I think that would be potentially, we could capture Supervisor Lemmer's consideration should be given to existing tenants in that building, potentially as a part of that proposal, if that's the desire of the committees.
We're looking for a motion, and we can also do a joint vote for this as well? Or does it have to be separate?
Probably should do it separately, I think.
We have a motion for the triple ED. We have a motion by Rosenberg for the resolution, second by Lemmer. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, that passes. Triple ED.
And for the Human Resources Finance Property Committee, what are your wishes? Moved by Supervisor Hart to approve the resolution. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Poole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That motion is unanimous. And just for the record, Chair Gibbs is excused. He is at a NACO event. Do you have the direction that you?
Yeah, this was you were very efficient and very helpful. I'm glad, again, I think your conversation at the last meeting was really helpful for us when we sat down and kind of talked how would we accomplish those things. And we'll incorporate both the comments that were referenced, the mission vision importance, the sales tax and property tax, and also ensure that the process allows for existing tenants to be at least made well aware to potential proposers.
Thank you to all the staff for their work on this project too. Thank you.
So for the public, on the interim basis, once we issue the RFP, we've got a clearly designated contact person. Do we have a designated contact person in the interim prior to the release? Who should that be? Should that be Chris? You?
I haven't given thought to that. Yeah, if it goes to facilities, that's fine.
I think we have a volunteer.
Yeah.
So they should direct those to Chris Holman and the Deputy Administrator.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then your next item, if we want to go to the Thomas Street.
So we'll move on to Thomas Street. B1, continued discussion and possible action regarding next steps.
So very similar, I think, in terms of what's worked well with your last discussion. You have, again, the draft, and I know there's still some grammatical things we need to address. But I liked, again, after staff met after your last meeting, the idea of a broad authorizing resolution to say, hey, go forth and release the thing and move forward. If that's something that you're comfortable with that you just did for the UW, we do a similar thing for Thomas Street. I think we're in a position to get that released relatively soon. And it's not on your agenda, but there was a question earlier this morning that is related at the Infrastructure Committee. As each of these committees know, and it was discussed at the last meeting, one of the complicating factors in releasing the RFP for the Thomas Street location is that the Thomas Street location is the last remaining tenant in that building. They're hoping to move out in the kind of middle of next year, but they receive internet service through the county And that internet service runs through our facilities on River Drive. So a question was asked earlier this morning at the Infrastructure Committee, when can we move forward with with RFPs for the River Drive buildings in light of those IT concerns? And as I thought about it, it's going to take several months you release the RFP, it's open for a while, proposers submit, those are evaluated. I don't think there's any logistical issue with us releasing a proposal for, a request for proposals for Thomas Street, River Drive, and the UW Ed, in a overlap timeframe. So if you're comfortable with the Thomas Street, again, as the template, which I think it is a very strong template. I think we put a lot of time and energy, staff put a lot of energy into that. Aaron did a great job working with Chris. A lot of eyes have been on this, and we pulled a lot of that from existing RFPs, from templates from other jurisdictions. So I think the template is strong. If you like a broad authorizing resolution for Thomas Street, I know HR Finance is likely to meet next week.
We will meet, not
Next-
likely, we will meet on Wednesday.
Yeah, I know. I got a long list of agenda items for next week. They could likewise give staff direction with a broad authorizing resolution to go to the full board to release that RFP following that template. So that's kind of where we're at with the Thomas Street piece. I don't know, Chris, Candace, anything you want to add to or Aaron, anything on the Thomas Street RFPs, or RFP, I should say? You don't have a draft. I put together the authorizing resolution for the UW and didn't think about one for the Thomas Street, but the more I thought about it after the agenda went out, I think that's a good step to have a authorizing resolution for staff to release it consistent with the discussion. So if, we'll bring that to HR Finance next week relative to River Drive for consideration, but
And Thomas.
in Thomas Street.
So the question before us today is, is the RFP subject to the modifications? And there was a date change that we need to make relative to the submittal for the RFPs that will be incorporated. But if you're comfortable, perhaps we could have a motion to advance to accept the RFP because we're using that as a template? Or do we need that
If you're going to meet next week and
in the resolution?
we can do that. Really, it's again another opportunity. We've brought this back a number of times. If there's anything missing from that RFP that you want incorporated, similar to your conversation about the UW process, and I know Vice Chair Marshall's comments about making sure we include property tax, we can get that in there. And we can bring that back next week to HR Finance. But certainly if there's anything from the Extension Education Economic Development Committee that, hey, we're missing in that Thomas Street template, happy to hear it now.
So I'm assuming silence means we're all good. All right. Then we'll move on to 5C, reconsideration of potential $5,000 funding for Synergy Target Industry and Site Readiness Evaluation. A supervisor has brought this back for reconsideration, and I will send it over to Administrator Leonard to elaborate.
Sure. Not much in terms of elaboration. That is my understanding as well. A supervisor contacted Chair Gibbs to ask the board to reconsider the funding. They voted on the prevailing side, so the side of, it was a supermajority vote was needed to approve. So one of the supervisors that voted no contacted Chair Gibbs. My only thought in having if this committee would like to look at a potential different funding source, I know I offered up previously and slightly retracted my offer relative to the special projects fund that exists as part of the 2025 budget. We are in December I still do have some funding available in my special projects fund within administration, so no budget amendment would be needed. But nevertheless, I would, if the committees want me to utilize that funding, I would ask that to come from the full board, that direction. But that is an avenue that we could utilize for that funding. And then the other piece I'll add is that there were questions at your full board meeting about the idea of making it contingent upon Centergy making a presentation to the full board. And I did have the opportunity to speak with the director, Angel Laidlaw. She said certainly she would do that. And also she wanted me to convey, there was another question about making it contingent upon other municipalities, specifically other counties, delivering funding. And a number of counties have. And in fact, another county did make their funding allocation contingent on no less than 3 of the 5 member counties of Centergy putting funds in. So she wanted me to convey that. So certainly we can add that to any consideration by the board, but you are correct, Chair Marash. My understanding is a board member contacted Chair Gibbs to request reconsideration.
Is there any discussion? Just my 2 cents as far as this goes. I think I do like the no less than 3 of the 5 counties participating. And just as we are an economic development committee, I think that $5,000 isn't a big ask for this. So personally, I'm in favor. So is there any other comments? All right, so then we would need a motion. We have a motion by Rosenberg, second by Seefeld. Any discussion?
Can I just ask for clarification if I may? Again, I did look at my special projects fund. Would the desire be for, and I guess I'm asking the maker of the motion, is that the direction to fund it from the county administration special projects fund and include, I just also want to make sure I can draft your resolution the right way, to make it contingent on no less than 3 of the 5 member counties allocating funding and a presentation be made by Centergy?
Presentation by Centergy, the 5 counties, where it's funded. I don't know.
I've heard him say that.
I mean, I just want to make sure, because it just changes how I need to write it. So and I certainly do, I can make that, part of the resolution.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you. So, and Seefeld seconds that motion. And then any discussion? No? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously from Triple ED.
Okay, from the Finance Committee, what are your wishes? Yes. Moved by Supervisor Lemmer to ditto. Is there a second? Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Hart. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Poole.
Yeah, I'm going to remain opposed to this, and I want to be clear, it's not because I think this is a bad proposal. I think it's a fine thing for economic development organization to be doing, but I don't think it's within the scope of what county government should be doing. This doesn't directly benefit any of our programs or services. It's not a need for us. This is a choice. And I know you can certainly make the argument that it does benefit the county in, a lot of ways. But we just heard too from one of the speakers earlier, there are 1,200 nonprofits in the area, if that number's accurate. And they're all doing good work for the county too, and we're not funding them. I think that there's a bit of conceit that if government doesn't fund it, it's not going to get done. That's not true. I think this organization can go to other sources and other stakeholders for funding. And if it is such a good proposal, they shouldn't have any problem getting $5,000 more dollars. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion? I'd just like to point out that the statutes do allow for counties to be engaged in economic development activities. And again, we are creatures of the state and can only do what they authorize. And I would also like to point out that historically, the county has had a role to play in economic development. If you look at the Central Wisconsin Business Park, that was on, associated with the airport, but that was county land, and we had a play. What we're looking is to get Marathon County on the map so that developers look at us. I think April did a good job in her presentation and saying that, this is a large site development. You're trying to get somebody in to evaluate it and determine the strengths and weaknesses of it, but to then invite the developers in to look at it. I think clearly we are the beneficiaries of that from a property tax standpoint, and potentially from a sales tax perspective. So I think it is an investment, a small investment into a large study that could benefit the county going forward. Supervisor Lemmer.
Can you just help me remember, it seems to me when we had the presentation, Supervisor Pfeiffer said Wausau has the only certified site right now, and what this study would do would see what else is available through the county or the region. Am I right on that, or am I remembering that wrong?
I think you're, don't hold me to it. And we're approaching my appraisal time, so I hesitate to get. I think you're right that Wausau has the only state certified site in Marathon County at this time. This site selection or a site evaluation study that Angel presented on is not only to look at potential sites that could be deemed site ready, but also to engage with site developers to better understand what they're looking for in those development sites. And I think Angel referenced this, but you've likely seen in the news relatively recently, quite a number of sites in southeastern and southern Wisconsin. There's some very large developments that are going in that are kind of those industrial sites, and what they need, as Angel referenced, they're very large sites, significant infrastructure in terms of transportation, but also electrical, water, and other things. So my understanding from Angel's presentation is to get kind of that information on both sides. What is available from an actual land and infrastructure standpoint right now, but also better understand what those site developers need in the future and where opportunities may exist to enhance what's available to make it more attractive to them.
Any other questions, discussion? Not? Although I'm going to do a roll call because all those in favor will signify by saying aye, or opposed no when their name is called. Yep.
Supervisor Marshall. Supervisor Hart.
Aye.
Supervisor Lemmer. Supervisor Poole.
No.
I have Reynolds on
I vote aye.
here. Supervisor Reynolds.
No.
Supervisor Robinson.
Aye. So that motion loses on a tie. It will be advanced to the county board based on the recommendation from EEDC.
Okay, moving on to 5D, consideration to join Discover Financial Services litigation.
Or
Brian's gonna take that one.
Thank you. Yes, I believe you have my memo in the packet. Basically what has gone on here, I'll try to give the basic understanding as I have it. We received payments through Discover Card during the period of January of 2007 through December 31st, 2023. Apparently during those transactions, Discover Card had misclassified them, which adjusted the rate as to which the fees the county would have paid to Discover for having those, for using Discover for those, receipt of those funds. Basically what we have here is a class action has been filed. We have been notified as one of the claimants for the settlement in that matter. If you read the documents that I provide, or the document I provided, the amount of the settlement that we would be entitled to is $10. I think that we can stack that across multiple departments that used Discover Card. The one I have here is for the Register of Deeds. I have one or two other departments that may have used Discover Cards in that time period. And so we may be able to, I guess, stack those into $40, $50, $70. I'm not sure. It is a matter that the county can, I guess, seek the settlement funds for, so I thought it important to bring it to this committee to make that decision. I should also note that if enough claimants file claims and it gets to the $50 million mark, that the $10 could then be reduced pro rata based on the amount of claims that they receive.
You could also sue on your own, but.
Yeah, you could also
Don't do
reject the
that.
settlement and sue on your own. I don't want to tell you that option is not available. So again, it's something that got brought to my attention. And so I figured I would bring it to the powers that be here at Marathon County for them to make a decision on this.
As Brian put in the memo, our recommendation is to authorize participation in the class action. Let's not sue ourselves. And whatever amount comes, the minimum is $10. Hopefully, as Brian said, we get more than that, but.
So by taking this action, we may actually be part of the smallest budget amendment in the history of Marathon County should a settlement be received. So, I mean, you could be on the right side of history here.
Discussion.
Supervisor Poole.
I mean, there's really no downside for this. We should move forward with it.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to move forward with this.
Is there a second from the HR Finance Committee? President Lemmer seconds. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries unanimously.
All right, Triple ED, we have a motion by Rosenberg, second by Seefeld. Any discussion? No, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, that is a unanimous. All right, next, 6, educational presentations and committee discussion. We have our McDevco monthly report.
Do you want me to come up there? Am I good here? Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. It's been a couple of months, and there's some new faces in the room, so I'll take this opportunity to maybe give a little bit greater background than what I normally do. McDevco focuses, as you know, on small business growth and expansion throughout Marathon County, and we do that in 3 ways. We educate, we incubate, and we finance small business startups and expansion. So I'm going to start with financing. We administer a variety of loan funds for small businesses that are either starting or expanding. Some of those are on behalf of the city of Wausau, some are private, and one was in partnership, and I say was, with Marathon County and the Judd S. Alexander Foundation. I'm happy to report that we've had a very fruitful year and assisted a lot of businesses with gap and microfinancing, and we'll probably end the year around $1 million that we financed this year alone. with loans as small as $15,000. So we've been quite busy because we spend a lot of space in that micro loan category with loans between $25,000 and $30,000. So if you think about the economic impact, that's really exciting. Our loan fund agreement that we entered in 2019 with Marathon County in partnership with the Judd S. Alexander Foundation has been fully drawn. So that's great news. And we have additional funds that we can continue to lend outside of that fund to businesses in Marathon County. But that's really exciting considering that fund started right before COVID and didn't have a lot of activity until a couple years ago. So we're very excited that we were able to utilize those funds and finish out our agreement with Marathon County and see those funds working in the community. So that's a positive. Again, we still have funds to lend, so rest assured. We also administer private on-site wastewater treatment system funding for consumers, so direct to homeowners. So it's space different than entrepreneurs. We're working with CPZ and folks that are in rural Marathon County that need their septic systems replaced. And we offer a very low interest, 3%, lengthy term, some up to 30 years, for them to make affordable payments back to us and get those systems replaced and help the groundwater. So we've helped replace over 15 systems in the county, and weather's the one thing that slows us down. As soon as that ground thaws, we really can't do much, but we continue funding throughout the year. So if you know somebody, we offer lengthy commitment letters so that they can get it done when it best suits them. You can see our educational calendar throughout the year. We wrapped up with our Gear Certificate of Entrepreneurial Excellence program. This is a great program that feeds business startup or business ideas into the community and helps them launch their businesses. We had 15 participants. Of those that participate, usually 30% launch immediately after the class. The other 60% need a little more time or choose it's not for them. All are a win. So we're helping them balance what that looks like to become an entrepreneur. And some have then turned around and rented space from us in the last category I'll talk about. We manage the WASA Business Incubator as well. So when I talk about educate, incubate, finance, the incubate pillar is really important to us. We were brought in to manage the business incubator over in the industrial park on 72nd Avenue in early 2021. Occupancy at that time was 61%. We're finishing the year at 86%. We've worked with the business incubator to develop a tenant tenure policy to encourage that ecosystem of movement out into the community and continue to educate those tenants on the loan funds that we have that can assist them in doing that. So we also manage a co-working space and commercial kitchen in that facility, most of which are full. So that's very exciting. We still have a couple offices available, but we will finish the year at 86% with 2 new leases generating in the next week or so. Any questions?
No, thank you very much. Okay, so we are on to 7, next meeting date and time, announcements and future agenda items. Committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. Next meeting for HRFC is Wednesday, December 10th at 2025 at 3 p.m. and Triple ED is Thursday, January 8th at 3 o'clock. Take a motion for Triple ED to adjourn. Motion by Rosenberg, second by Seefeld. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
4A, HRFPC, what are your, moved by Supervisor Poole, second by Supervisor, or Vice Chair Marshall. All those in favor of adjournment will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Those member, that motion is approved and welcome as an honorary member.